A large reason people like to play Age of Empires 2 are because of the vast amount of complexities that this game has to offer. For example, there are different game modes from Random Math, Regicide, King of the Hill, Deathmatch, and there are also different phases of gameplay, for example early game, mid game, and late game. I've been going over the early game and mid game for a Deathmatch game in 2 previous videos, and in this game I'm going to talk all about Trash Wars. Now, when I talk about trash units, I do not mean units that are completely and totally useless. There's another term for these units, and that term is the target. However, what trash refers to are units that cost no gold, and ironically, trash units can be very useful because they're not very valuable. They're very cheap to make. In many games, having an excess of gold oftentimes happens because you have trade or you play on maps that have lots of gold piles. However, in a 1 vs 1 game, once gold runs out, you are entering the late game of a deathmatch, or what is also commonly known as Trash Wars. And by this, I mean the stage of the game where the only units you can really afford are the units that cost no gold. So, in order to determine what civilization is the best Trash Wars civilization, you have to look at who has the strongest trash units. Now, as a brief overview, trash units are the Halberdier line, the Hussar line, and the Elite Skirmisher line. Halberdiers counter Hussars because they're cavalry, Hussars counter Skirmishers because the Skirmishers have minimum range and the Hussars are fast, and the Skirmishers counter Halberdiers because the Skirmishers are ranged and because the Skirmishers have bonuses against the Halberdiers. Hussars are also very important because they take out enemy siege, and with what little gold you have left in a Trash Wars, all that needs to be going towards siege. So if you have good siege, your civilization is automatically going to be better at Trash Wars. Now, for the purposes of this video, I am not going to take siege into account because that is too many variables. However, do keep in mind that a civilization with good siege will perform well in Trash Wars. Now, before I talk about which civilization has the best trash, in my opinion, I'm going to talk about strategy for Trash Wars. And this goes for any civilization. Now, what you need to do is you need to be making as many trash units as you can. This is pretty obvious. However, make sure that you have an economy to sustain this, but also make sure that your economy is not so huge, so that way you're just wasting population space, because you want to be creating as many units as possible. What this means is that you also want to be having lots of unit-producing buildings. So you want a lot of barracks, archery ranges, and stables, obviously. However, trash units are not going to be very good at taking down buildings, so you're going to need to make some siege. Now, the siege you make is going to be dependent on your civilization and on its bonuses, but basically, if you have the siege onager, make a few of these, but don't go overboard because they're very expensive. If you have some bombard cannons, you can make some, but don't go overboard because they're also very expensive. Instead, I think that if you have the siege ram, this is when the siege ram really shines, because it is a cheap siege weapon, only costing a small amount of gold. Now, how you play it is going to be dependent on what map you're on, but briefly, if you're on an open map, try to outflank your opponent, try to raid your opponent's economy, try to destroy important buildings, and if you're on a closed map, do not allow that unit production to subside or to become less in any way, because you do not want to give your opponent an opportunity. Now, the first thing to analyze when determining what trash is strong is to see if those trash units are fully upgraded. So, the only civ that has 100% fully upgraded trash units are the Spanish. They have all the blacksmith techs, and they have bloodlines. Civilizations that are lacking in only one upgrade are the Chinese and the Portuguese, who are both missing the Hussar, The Berbers, Italians, and Saracens are all missing the halberdier. Indians and Magyars are missing the plate mail armor. Persians and Slavs are missing bracer, and the Vietnamese are missing blast furnace. However, this does not tell the full story, because some civilizations have bonuses that make their trash units stronger than other civilizations. The Berbers have the Hussar being 20% cheaper, and they have the team unit, which is the Geniteur. If you don't know what a Geniteur is, it's basically a skirmisher that is mounted. Geniteurs are actually not that great against halberdiers, however they do add a fourth option, and when massed they are still a good unit to have in trash wars. The Britons have their yeoman tech, which gives their skirmishers +1 range, and for that entire team, skirmishers are created 20% faster. The Burmese have mana per cavalry, which gives their hussar units +3 attack versus buildings, but they miss 2 archer armors, so be very careful about that because they have very weak skirmishers. The Byzantines, skirmishers, and halberdiers are 25% cheaper, and this is a huge bonus. However, they do miss blast furnace and bloodlines, and this isn't that big of a deal because they still have access to the hussar upgrade. The Goths have 35% cheaper halberdiers, +1 attack versus buildings, and because of their perfusion tech, their halberdiers on anything from the barracks are created 100% faster. This also stacks with their team bonus, which makes other barracks units being created 20% faster. They do miss the last infantry and cavalry armors, however the cheapness of these halberdiers definitely makes up for it, and they do have access to bloodlines, which make their hussars better than most in my opinion. The Huns have the team bonus, which is the hussar is created 20% faster, which is a nice bonus to have if you're trying to spam them. The Japanese halberdiers attack 33% faster, but they miss the hussar, the last cavalry armor, and in the base game they miss bloodlines, meaning their hussars are not anything special. Actually, because they don't have hussars, they only have up to light cavalry. So be careful when you're in the Japanese in a trash war. Opposed to the Japanese, there are the Magyars. They have a unique unit, which is the Magyar Hussar, which is basically a version of the Hussar that is actually created from the castle, and it is really good against siege units, so it's a great trash unit to have. Their scout units are also cheaper, but they do miss plate mail. I don't think this is really a big deal, so the Magyars do have very good trash units. The Malay is a very interesting one. They miss 2 cavalry armor upgrades, which is more than any other civilization in the game. They miss hussar, and they miss bloodlines, meaning they have the worst light cavalry in the game. And they miss the last militia line upgrade, which is the champions, meaning they only have access to 2-handed swordsmen, and which are still a decent counter against other trash units, which is the role that the champion and 2-handed swordsmen play, which is a counter to trash. However, the melee have 2-handed swordsmen that cost no gold, meaning that, in theory, they have the best trash unit in the game. This is a very interesting situation, which I'll talk about a little bit later. The Mongol Hussar has plus 30% HP, but they miss halberdiers, the last archer armor, and the last cavalry armor. So it's kind of a mixed bag right there. The Slavs' unique tech Dracena allows their infantry units, including the halberdier, to do splash damage, meaning that they damage all units adjacent to them. However, they do miss bracer, which, in all honesty, that's only 1 tech gone, so that is not that big of a deal. And lastly, the Vietnamese have 20% more health points on their archer units, but they also have a team unit, which is the Imperial Skirmisher, which is an upgrade to the regular Skirmisher. This means that they do have incredible trash, because they only missed Blast Furnace. With these bonuses and techs in mind, here is my list of the best trash civilizations in the game. No, I'm not saying the worst civilizations in the game, but the civilizations who perform the best in trash wars. At 4th place, we actually have a 4-way tie, because I think that this civilization's bonuses are situational depending upon your enemy civilization and upon the map, so I'm just going to put these in a 4th place as a tie. First would be Berbers, because they have full blacksmith, They have cheaper Hussar, and their team unit is the Janitor, which is very good. They only miss the Halberdier, which does hurt, which is why they are not higher, because the Halberdier is a very important trash unit. However, that fourth option is still great. Tied with them would be the Vietnamese, because of the Imperial Skirmisher. Tied with them would also be the Spanish, just because they have the best all-round trash units, because they're fully upgraded, if that makes sense. And they are also tied with the Slavs, because they don't miss anything really important, and because Dracena, which is their tech, allows for that splash damage, which makes their halberdiers a lot more powerful. At third place, I would probably have to put a tie between the Magyars and the Byzantines, for different reasons. The Byzantines have cheaper halberdiers and skirmishers, and only missing plate mail and bloodlines means that their hussars are still very good. Also, those cheaper skirmishers means that you can get away with less of an economy, which means you can field more units, similar to the Goths bonus, which means that you will have a larger armor, which means you'll win, in the way I see it. Tied with the Byzantines for third place are the Magyars, because of the Magyar Hussar. This is basically a Hussar, except it is good against siege weapons because it deals bonus damage to them. They have almost everything else fully upgraded except for their missing plate mail armor, and the Magyar Hussar really adds to their army because it's the perfect siege sniping unit. In second place would be the Goths. They have fully upgraded skirmishers, they have very good hussars, and they have all those incredible unit creation, time, and cheapness for the halberdier. And I think that this is very important in Trash Wars, because Trash Wars is all about getting those units out as fast as possible. And I think that the Goths for this are the second best trash civilizations. The number one pick, in my opinion, is of course the melee. Even though their light cavalry are weak, they are still usable to take out siege. And the two-handed swordsmen are still very good unit at all, just because it's very hard to counter in a trash war. Now, don't think that you can just use the two-handed swordsman as the melee. It's not going to work. However, they do have that fourth option, which makes their trash incredibly strong. Now, I understand that I've left out civilizations that have good siege, and I haven't really addressed that very much, which is why some people will disagree with my rankings. However, I have found that it's the trash units that are most important in Trash Wars. You may disagree, and that's fine. I'd love to hear about your reasons for disagreeing. So, those are basically my thoughts and opinions on the Trash Wars section of a deathmatch game. Or really any game for that matter. I hope that you've enjoyed my list, and please watch my other videos because who doesn't like to self-promote? See you later.